Welcome to the Blessed to Teach Show, part 2 of the worldwide storm. This is crazy what's going on here. So I had so much material, I had to split this in two. So if you want to see all the 13 or 14 drops that we just decoded on earlier video, go back to the previous video on part 1. So again, worldwide storm, go to the previous video if you want to go through all the different videos. But we have tons to go over, all the different drops. We got tons to go over. We got SB2 decode on some stuff from the past. I got a couple of things to show you from Serial Brain 2, as well as a bunch of QAnon news, as well as a Bible study. So let's go over some of this QAnon related news, as well as getting into what we're talking about with Serial Brain 2 and his decodes over thing. There's a ton of stuff to go over. Looks like I've got a bunch of people jumping back on from Texas, and let's see, they've got the George Soros already coming back. Thank you guys, and John and Michelle. Another phase is back on. Thank you guys. You don't feel like you have to be here, moderators, for everyone. I know this is doing a lot of stuff, but I'm actually going to be, this is part 2 of the video. So this, what we're going to do now is we went over all the decodes of the 13 ones that he dropped today, and that was in part 1. So go back to that video if you want to go see that. This is part 2, where we're going to be going over all the QAnon news, a bunch of SB2, Serial Brain 2 decodes, as well as going into the Bible study on Esther 8 through 10. So basically I have 2 shows tonight, because there's just so much to go over. So let's get into show number 2 here, part 2. If you get in here, I wanted to just kind of go back to this. This was incredible. Let's refresh this to make sure that Q didn't drop again. But we reviewed all these posts, and we had 2536 was the last one. So that's good news. We are done. It says, be proud. The world is about to change. Q was the last one we went over. And you can see he's actually talking about this person that I played twice in the last video. It's just tempting to play it again because it's awesome, him singing a cappella, just beautiful, singing God Bless the USA in a Chick-fil-A. So go check that out in the previous video if you missed that. But let's get into all the other news that we're going to go over. You saw this person all the way from the Hague, I guess, going all, and he's got this Q shirt in that's saying, why is this relevant? Hashtag enjoy the show. Hashtag QAnon. Here is you saw this too, which is just awesome. In Paris, you see these police officers all pull off their helmets in solidarity. A group of French police officers remove their helmets to show solidarity with the French people. That's why I'm saying this is worldwide now, guys. It's going out across everywhere. It's a worldwide storm. Germany, France, Belgium, etc. And you'll see right here that Q says, ask yourself a very simple question. Why is there a total and complete MSM, mainstream media, blackout regarding France, Belgium, Germany, EU riots, etc.? When you are awake, you can see clearly fake news equals the enemy of the people. Q. They are rising up as we the people to fight against these globalist Macron and all these other global-based, New World Order leaders. And finally, there's people are stepping up. It's kind of scary to see. Europe is the storm. Europe is more awake than most of the Americans, right? So it's like crazy to think about that. Obviously, I'm not talking about you guys. You guys are awake. Here they are, and this was actually in Berlin, where we see these 4 people holding up the Q and the protest with the yellow jackets going on, just like in France. And just amazing things going on. So let's dig into a couple other things. Is this CERN we talked about? Is this SB2 code decode here in a second? And here it is right here. Q. Well, there's 2 more pieces of news I want to get before we do the serial brain. Here's a Q 2531. Why the EU news is blacked out. So this will amplify on that a little bit. It says, just got off the phone with my brother-in-law in Germany, and the unrest and demonstrations are going on everywhere. Unlike the U.S., Europe will demonstrate when they are really pissed off, and they now are. It seems our president has stronger voice with Europe than we realized. When will the U.S. wake up? We all hope we are now. Where we go one, we go all. He said most of the issues are with the stripping of the EU countries' identities and the fact that the immigration problems are not melding with the current morals of the countries that they're living in. And the authorities, police, and local administrations can do nothing about it for fear of being branded a racist and fascist. People go to jail in Europe for dissenting opinions now. Gas tax my ass, he said. It's because the EU has financed mass migrations with European taxpayer dollars. That's the real revolt. So we know the Mockingbird media, the enemy of the people, is not going to tell you the truth. And obviously they're not telling you any truth when it comes to all the migration problems and the fact that they're protesting for that reason against the New World Order plan to basically overthrow all the national pride of these different countries. And people are standing up now for it. Thank goodness they're starting to stand up for it. I wanted to see if I can get this working here. There it goes. I want to be able to see if I can make sure we have a good number of people on. I see a live stream going on. Just checking this out real quick. There it is. 255 of you on now already. Thank you for joining me so late on Sunday night. Here we are on just a discussion, so you can come to this thing. I'm going to refresh it to make sure there's no new comments. December 2nd, Q discussion on vote.co, voat.co. And if you look at this, it gives all the stream of information that we got, and then there's some discussion here. And there's a couple of good items of an anon saying, Q team has a plan. Most of you normies cannot process the magnitude of the operation. Instead of baking, you decide to leave a wall of doubt in your own brain. Thank God for Q. At minimum, patriots from around the globe have a direction. Honestly, this old vet finds a lot of peace through knowing the crumbs. I know. It provides hope in a sometimes hard world. Thanks, Q. This other person's talking about the FISA two-way street. Is there a FISA on Rod Rosenstein and the bad actors? Of course there is. Could there be a reason the FISA court has kept quiet on discovery? Yeah, they're an active investigation. So they, instead of speaking out about all the criminality of the fake dossier and then being lied to, they're now using their power to make sure that we catch the criminals that did that very thing. How do you legally inject evidence? So some good questions there. And so this person says, I wondered why they did not come out and defend angrily for the longest time. Came to the same conclusion, they must be part of the response. So this response is going to be awesome. That's all there is to it. Here's another person that goes through. Oh, this is Cyril Brain 2. So this is Cyril Brain 2, a whole post, and he's got an awesome look at the Comey hiding behind Skull and Bones skirt. State funeral next week. Coincidence? So here he goes. So he digs into this pretty heavily, and it's just a real good analysis of exactly what Comey's trying to do and how he actually called it Skull and Bones. You know, it's almost like when a Mason's about ready to die, they'll do the sign or whatever the sign is. Said, anybody else that's a Mason, help me, type thing. Or I was about ready to bring up another person in another religion that I don't want to start that controversy right now. I'll do that at a later time. But bottom line is that it's like these secret societies have these secret signs, and if you can get your secret brothers to try to help save your butt when you're in panic. So Comey is in a panic. So let's review this. It says, I told you in a previous post that as part of the investigation into the FBI and DOJ handling of the Hillary Clinton email probe and the Russia investigation, Comey was to appear before Congress for a closed-door deposition on November 29th, and that Lynch interview was scheduled for December 5th. I also drew your attention on the fact that the closed-door deposition would not allow the interviewed to dodge tough questions and weaselly claim to not be able to answer questions for national security reasons. Well, to the September 21st, 2018 House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte and House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy, letter wrote to Comey requesting his appearance for a closed-door interview. We learn in this article, and you can go to these articles, I'm not going to go to them, that Comey attorney responded on October 1st, 2018, declining the request and instead welcoming the opportunity to testify in a public hearing. Then, on November 21st, the Judiciary Committee sent him a subpoena requiring his testimony at a closed-door hearing on December 3rd, 2018. He resisted with a tweet the next day and filed a lawsuit in federal court in Washington on November 29th. So he waited all the way till November 29th to fight the closed-door session. And so there's a video here of him weaseling out of everything, and he doesn't like to be called a weasel. But let's see if I think this is a pretty short one.
You can call us wrong, but don't call us weasels. We are not weasels. We are honest people. Also tonight, reports from FBI personnel are furious that the Bureau did not do the right thing in the Clinton email investigation. We'll have a follow-up.
Okay, we're honest people, right. Comey does not want a closed-door session at all. Why? Because he would not be able to sing his favorite song, which is, I can't answer that in an open setting. Do you remember? He shared this beautiful song several times in the past with us. For example, during his June 2017 testimony on Trump-Russia, look at all these things. So here's a full text of the Comey testimony transcript on Trump and Russia. Big, huge question. So I don't want to talk about that in an open meeting. Here's another question. Oh, Mr. Chairman, I don't think that question I can answer in an open setting because it goes into the details of the investigation. Here's the next question. That I can't discuss in an open setting. And then did you ever cover, and here's another question, and it says, I don't think I can talk about that in an open setting either. Here's another question. He says, probably the only other conclusion that I guess I can talk about in an open setting is, and here he is, another question, I am not going to comment on whether that happened in an open setting. Here's another question, I don't think I can talk about that in an open setting. Here's another question, that's correct, I want to be careful in an open setting. Here's another question, I can't answer that in an open setting, sir. This is another question, nothing that I can talk about in an open setting. I know, ... Here's another one. That's a question I don't think I should answer in the opening setting. Here's another one. That's not a question I can answer in an open setting. So this is the June. He likes a camera in his face all the time, obviously, right? But this was the full text of his June deal with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 dodges around. I can't say that in an open setting. That's why he wants a public hearing, because they only get 5 minutes on him. A good investigator like Trey Gowdy or something, they only get 5 minutes, and half the time's burned up from them just stalling through the 5 minutes, right? And then they get the swampy Democrats able to take half the time up. And so you can't have effective. It needs to be a closed setting in order to get to those questions, right? So people are not stupid and know exactly what Comey is trying to achieve here. Once again, the American people are fully aware some individuals believe laws are only written for us, the sheep, while they, because they are part of some club, can do whatever they want. Katie Palfington brilliantly renders his reality in this video. So if you look at this video, first part she talks a little bit about it, and then
let's not forget.
And it's trying to
Gowdy or John Ratcliffe to follow all of the threads that need to be followed.
So while Comey says he's concerned with leaks, he's been accused of leaking himself, let's not forget, specifically when he admittedly gave his friend memos of private conversations that he had with the president. In the meantime, House Republicans...
They don't have time really to go over that, but you can just see it goes over and over about him leaking and the fact that he's lying and not even answering the questions because it's in an open setting. But there is more to it. First, it's worth noticing that Comey waited 10 days to respond that he would decide a closed-door interview. Did he need 10 days to realize he wanted what he claimed to be transparency? Second, he filed a federal lawsuit 8 days after he received the subpoena, or just 4 days or 2 Labor Days before he was supposed to appear before Congress. Conveniently enough, The federal judge is scheduled to rule on December 3rd, which is the very same day Comey was supposed to be interviewed. So he's delaying, obviously. What does this tell you? Yes, you got it. He is buying time. For what? The obvious answer is he hopes to survive until the House becomes Democrat on January, so he can be protected by those who love him, then hated him, then loved him again. That's his long-term plan. But he also has a short-term tactical concern. Do you see it? It's right here. Q2203. Panic in D.C. Lynch talking. Q. Did you catch Lynch was supposed to be interviewed on December 5th, which is 2 days after Comey? What a brilliant move by Goodlatte and Gowdy. I remember when I was a kid, when my mom wanted to get to the bottom of whose idea it was to sneak out of the house with our homework so we could also alternatively play football, she always wanted me to be the first to tell my side of the story. It always worked. I knew better and would immediately tell her it was me. Q2203 means Lynch is cooperating, so to confound the liar, you get them to talk first and hit him with the truth. As former director of the FBI, Comey is fully aware of this, and this is why he is trying to have Lynch talk first. After she does, he then will activate his network behind the scenes to access her testimony and build his defense according to using whatever artificial elements is required, like the fake memo play. Remember the fake memos they made up? Q1190. Memos are fake, guided by Loretta Lynch plus 3 classified. Think SC. All written same time. Q, special counsel. What they're talking about there. And of course, if the network can deliver blunter and more robust methods would be used, such as raiding the House of Clinton Foundation whistleblower. I'm sure you guys caught this type of operation is pretty damaging for them because it gets people to be aware there is indeed a Clinton Foundation case. And these are all a little bit too long for me to play, and I'll probably get copyright strikes, but you can go watch these yourself. But it sets up these very things he's going to talk about next. Bold moves like this are proof the deep state is in panic mode and cannot afford to play by the rules anymore. The maestro has outsmarted them, and the only way for them to now survive is to cheat clumsily. But there is even more. Look at this drop. Q2510, edit. Q post timestamp regarding D-class prior to post testimony. Comey's timestamp regarding attorney challenge to subpoena. Do the math. Q is asking us to do the math between the timestamp of the drop where he told us to list the advantages of the declassification before or after the scheduled testimonies and the timestamp of Comey's tweet where he challenged the subpoena. The drop Q is talking about is Q2501, where he says, Q2501, will the release occur prior to the scheduled testimony? List advantages. Will the release occur post scheduled testimony? List advantages. If those testifying no, select classified documents will become public, self-incrimination, how might that alter, change their testimony? DC has become rat infested. And the rat is actually R-A-T. It's actually capitalized. Watch that. That'll come back later. I have already walked you through the problematic of declassifying before or after testimonials with my homework example. If you apply my mom's method of inquiry, you will easily conclude it is far more efficient to lock in all testimonies before declassifying. How do you see this rat? Why is it in capital letters? Do you remember the rat equation? It is in my article AW9 listed at post number 8 in this archive. You can go see that past post. The equation is about mixing truth and lies to sell an appealing lie. R, the real truth, plus A, apparent truth, equals T, tempting falsehood. That's R plus A equals T. So that's what he thinks the capitalization of R-A-T. you have the real truth. If you know that beforehand, and you can lie with the apparent truth, and maybe people will buy your tempting falsehood, right? Q is telling us by declassifying after scheduled testimonies, rats are not allowed to mix falsehood to truth and to further activate their MSM fake news network to sell their lies. So the timestamp for this drop is November 25th. The timestamp of Comey's tweet is November 29th. So this is really interesting. If this is true, and you know SB2 is the best at numbers and looking at what the deep state's doing and how they're doing things, right? How they're using timestamps and stuff to actually send messages. And we know this 322 is when you cry for help. So how would they say 322 on Comey's tweet? Well, he would use the timestamp where actually, and Q told us to look at this. He said do the math. So Q tells us to do the math. So we know at 2501, the timestamp was on November 25th at 2055, right? And that was the timestamp. And so he's put this 25/20/55. And if you take when Comey's tweet was, it was at 5:15 on November 29th. So if you put 29/17/15, you subtract the two, and you actually get 3/20/20. Skull and Bones 322. Isn't that crazy? So here's Comey saying, today, my legal team filed court papers to try to get transparency from the House Republicans. Let the American people watch. Right? Which is, please let me say, I can't give you answers to any of my questions, and you only have Gowdy on me for 5 minutes, right? We know he's lying, but he's also calling out, please help me, Skull and Bones Club. And now, obviously, Daddy Bush was in this, as also was his son. And so junior and senior were both in the Skull and Bones 322 at Yale. And here we see these different codes. You're going to see different numbers that actually equals Ace of Spades, Skull and Bones, and that same tweet decoded area here. If we pulled that in, that came up with a couple of books, remember, right? It also comes up to the gematria of 149, which is the same as Skull and Bones 149, which is the same as Ace of Spades. So interesting to see. So you'll see what Trump does here. So and that's the time calculator that we took the time calculator out of that. That's do the math, what he's telling us to do, right? Now, if you look 2509, here is a Q post that says edit post timestamp regarding D-class prior to the testimony. Comey, remember the Y here, timestamp regarding attorney challenge to subpoena. Do the math. So there's the math, them calling 322. So you can say, oh, SB2 does all this weird stuff with gematria, but here Q's asking us to do the math. Well, I know people like Neon Revolt were frustrated with this because he couldn't figure it out. SB2 figures it out, and everybody seems to criticize him that doesn't understand the numbers. But I think we have to trust SB2 when it comes to gematria. He's the expert, and nobody else had done the math to figure this out. So I trust SB2 in this case. Comey adjusted this legal case tweet timestamp to post at QDrop 2501 about D-class and testimony schedule. He coded 322 in his tweet to activate the Skull and Bones network. Right? So that's really what that's all about. And I'm not going to read all this because this was the whole point was the timestamp of what I already read about what's the advantages and disadvantages of going first or later, right? Let's use the time online tool calculator. This is what he just did. The difference between the two timestamps, we find 320, which represents 322. Skull and Bones. Do you see this Y in the kill brackets? Why is it in brackets? This was Q's first communication because Y equals 25 equals 2 plus 2, 3, mirror of 322. So remember, he always talks about Trump comes back with 2, 2, 2, 3. We're going to take down 3, 2, 2. Sorry, your Skull and Bones thing's not going to work for you, Comey. Q's second confirmation in this picture file name of Q2501. If you separate, let me shorten this up a little bit so you can see the whole screen. If you separate numbers from letters, you get, and that's the DN, NY, DT, etc., at 94. And this is the other thing I just showed you. The value for that is 149 and is also the value of Skull and Bones. Coincidence? Now, what is this 94? Bavarian Coffee, for those who have noticed, Q2501 comes 49 minutes after the House of Cards file name in 2500. 94 is the ace of spades. Do you like carrots? Peas? This is a riddle on its own. Happy hunting. So he gave us a kind of a hint to go search ourselves. I haven't had the time to do that, but you feel welcome to go take SB2's riddle. Do you realize the magnitude of what has just been revealed by Comey's tweet and Skull and Bones? First, we now have proof that black hats read Q. May even be more than you and I do. Second, they refer to his drops and use social media to communicate between them. Third, by pointing out the Q drop referring to scheduled testimonies and declassification, Comey's tweet is activating his 322 Skull and Bones secret oath brothers within the judiciary system, asking them for their help in this federal lawsuit against Congress. He is essentially telling them he needs time and protection against declassification. As you can see, using legal process, Comey was able to dodge his December 3rd closed-door interview, mutate it to a federal judge ruling, and activate his Skull and Bones network within the judiciary system for further protection. After playing this card, he assumed all he needed was to wait for Lynch to appear before Congress as scheduled on December 5th so he could prepare and adjust accordingly. Well, unfortunately for Comey, it seems he will have to spend more time studying the beautiful and lethal D5 chess play. 41 was just passed away, and the maestro has named December 5th National Day of Mourning for George H.W. Bush. So that's interesting. Now, I thought she was testifying on the 4th, and 5th was Huber. So if SB2 is right here, that would be an amazing play where it looks like instead of the cabal setting that date, Trump did for a specific reason because he wants to move Loretta after Comey. Q 2522 regarding GHWB, George Bush. USSS, code name regarding Timber Wolf, the Gray Wolf. Cannabis lupus, also known as Timber Wolf. Share a common ancestry with a domestic dog. State funeral next week. Coincidence? Q. Blessed Teach is awesome and calming. I couldn't ask for anything better. Keep up the good work, Rick. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Cody C. All right, so guys, look at this. That's an SB2 thing, which is just amazing. And I go over yesterday's video if you want to decode this. This was crazy, and it was actually an incredible job done by Mr. Neon Revolt. And so this post is crazy that points back to Hitler, who was Timberwolf, and Grey Wolf was actually, I think Grey Wolf was Hitler, Timberwolf, but they're often used interchangeably, right? So why would he be using something similar to Hitler? Well, if you wanted to know the answer to that, go back to my video 2 days ago. Whew, crazy stuff. Here's another thing, SB2. He sent me an email. I mean, in vote.co, there's kind of like an email system. And so he sent me a mail communication telling me I missed something on the decode I did like 3 days ago. Thank you, Derek Jewel. Do appreciate it a lot. Here you go. So if you look at this, SB2 new post. And it said, and he said, my good friend, he's talking to me. This is SBT in a personal message to me. I don't think he'll mind me sharing this. The last sentence of the post of the video were relevant. So answer for item use. So the answer for the item used when walking a dog: a leash, a collar, and a pooper scooper. Right? I read this to you like a couple of days ago. But he wanted me to make sure I just didn't miss this video because I didn't play this video for you. Respectively, 45, 61, and 176 Family Feud points video. So if you look at this, this is what I didn't read this to you about. Respectively, 45, 61, and 176 Family Feud points. And there's a video about talking about what do you need to go walk a dog. And so you'll see this video, and I'm going to play it real quick.
Hey, Don, only one strike. If your dog ran away, name something you'd be surprised he took with him.
His bone?
His bone!
Now I want to just pause it there just for a second. You'll see, look at this. Leash and collar is 17. Q, right there. Isn't that kind of funny? So that's a first coincidence. If you watch the video at the 10-second mark, you see points for leash collar are 17. Q. This was the hint. So the 17, that was kind of funny, the leash and collar. In the post, leash equals 45 and refers to Trump, the 45th president. Collar equals 61, and he's talking about gematria now, refers to QAnon because QAnon equals 61. This question about the dog was asked for us to solve the numeric riddle showing that Trump and Q are the ones in control. Dogs are not free to do whatever they want to do. Who are the dogs? Yes, Skull and Bones. Q2004. Everything stated has meaning. Keep up the good work, SB2. So that was just amplifying on what we did, 3 days ago during his post, where we were talking about, obviously, the end of it was talking about what do you need when you walk a dog, and I had just decoded that as just a leash. And then if you look at a collar and a pooper scooper, I thought was kind of funny ads. And then just the fact that he does use gematria to show this leash and collar being 17, but then actually using gematria to show, basically that this question about the dog was asked for us to solve the numeric riddle showing that Trump and Q are the ones in control. Dogs are not free to do whatever they want to do. Who are the dogs? Yes, Skull and Bones. I thought that was just awesome. So SB2 is being a master again at some of these things. Hey, guys, as far as preparing, I'm just telling you, one of the things I think is one of the coolest things is this solar powered flashlight. It's one of the things, guys. I'm doing 3 sponsors in every 60 plus minutes. Right now, I'm going to give you almost an hour and a half to 2 hours of content with 3 sponsors. So again, remember, my YouTube videos do not give any monetization whatsoever. And if you want me to spend a little bit more time with this, eventually maybe even do it more full time, I have to have sponsors. And it's funny that YouTube's saying my videos are not suitable for advertisers. But yet, you know what? Advertisers are coming to me through my marketing company. So you should guys, please bear with us. This is awesome. And you guys have been tremendous supporting these sponsors. They love you guys. And so thank you so much. And it's guys, in your face to YouTube. Yes, there are. Sponsors want to be on this channel. Sponsors want to be on this. And one of them is just the ability to be able to charge up your phone based on solar power. This is what this will do. It has solar power, and this thing charges up really well with not much time, and it doesn't have to be direct sunlight. It's a really good device. It works well. I'm not going to be putting anything on my channel that doesn't work well. And it has a USB thing on the end. It has a siren now in the 2019 version. And again, just the fact you can charge up different devices from this solar powered deal is really cool. And then it has, as these guys do, this survival tactical flashlight has so many other uses. Has literally a glass breaker, has all kinds of beams here. It has strobe lights of different red and blue and different formats, so you can actually do SOSs and all that type of stuff. Can be seen like 2 miles away. A seatbelt cutter, a high-powered magnet on the other side of this. So these devices are just incredibly well made and ingenious. So get yourself one of these, or one. I would have one of them for each of your phones in the house, and to have solar-powered capability if somehow you lost electricity for a long time. Obviously, you need the cell towers to work as well, but if they did, just to have your phone charged could be a lifesaver, right? These things cost like $140, but you can get them down for $69 and a 20% discount on using Blessed20 at the code. You can also buy multiple ones and get it down to $49 each if you buy 3 of them. And then you get another, go up here and get your Blessed20, and you get another 20% discount. So a Blessed20. And so you get these down to what I call Christmas present ranges for some people, right? So now you divide that by 3, and you've got a pretty good price, a really good price on this, where you get basically 3 for the price of 1. So again, that is you're gonna want to go to patriotflashlight.com, all right? Patriotflashlight.com, and then use Blessed20 when you check out. These things are very phenomenal. So let's get to some more of these 2530. What are you witnessing in France has nothing to do with gas. Exactly, that's what we were just talking about. What you're witnessing in France has nothing to do with gas. It's a forced narrative. Vive la France, right? There's some discussion here. I'm thinking that anger at the betrayal of their leaders, the loss of national sovereignty, to EU bureaucrats, forced mass migration, suppression of criticism is coming to a boiling point, as it should. Great summary of what's really happening versus the fake news saying it's a gas tax, right? So there's a lot of people onto this. I would wager that this small group following Q, easily over 30 million, is in hours dedicated dwarf CNN, MSNBC, and the Washington Post combined. So it'd be real interesting to see that all these people, about the time that we're putting into this, especially the Anons. Some of these guys have flexibility in their schedule, and they're putting 30, 40 hours a week into this, more. Some of them 70, 80 hours a week that somehow have some other types of income. And it's crazy. So I wager my own personal hours dedicated dwarf CNN, NBC, and Washington Post combined. I'm currently a nursing program, and it is generally a struggle for me to focus on schooling with all this is going on. I think you guys probably feel that too. It's like I have a hard time watching movies. I have a hard time just doing anything in my spare time except for this, because it's so important. I have this overwhelming urge to be well informed for the protection of my family and loved ones. I mean, obviously school is a huge priority in my life, but the future is as well. The future of my children will mean nothing if I don't even have a country in a couple of years, and if I just stood by with the common I don't care attitude. So I'll tell you what, I think we're all being pulled that direction. We need to be informed and figure out, and that's why I think that's why I love about my ability to work with you guys and get your input and use the Mark Taylor and the prophecy and the Christian part of this and what the Bible's saying, and link that to what Q's saying with real world events, and pulling those things together is what's been fun for me, because it's like really clear once we put those three things together. It's quite exciting. Here you see the Ed Burke raid is huge. It wasn't Mueller that raided Burke, it was Horowitz. It connects the Panama Papers, Uranium One, the Clinton Foundation from our Drain the Swamp. Now, this is interesting. Now, if you listen to Dan Bongino, I turned you guys down to him like 6-7 months ago, right? And I think I told you Neon Revolt is following him now. But he doesn't have Q. I really don't believe he is a busy guy, always on Fox News, always on doing his podcast, and it's completely full. And I don't think he even considers Q. I don't even think he knows what Q is. Some people think I'm crazy for thinking that. But he's all frustrated with people that think that Mueller, that we say, some of his fans tell him that Mueller it might be a gray hat or a white hat helping. And he gets mad and angry about that. And today he thought this whole raid was Mueller trying to hide everything. And Mueller's trying to hide everything. When I just think he's looking like he's trying to hide everything as he's working with Horowitz in the background. I think this is a Horowitz raid. Bongino thinks it was a Mueller raid trying to hide everything. Regardless, I just think we have everything, and I think and Bongino doesn't even think Obama and Hillary are going to go to jail. He's wrong. I'm just telling you that. So, just FYI, great guy, but he's wrong because he doesn't have Q. He doesn't have the Q knowledge. Now, he is a Christian, right? So I'm sure he's mixing what he knows from the Bible in here, but he doesn't look at prophecy, I don't think, at all. But he doesn't have the Q knowledge. He just has the news. He does a great job with that. A great job with Spygate, etc. But you guys have an advantage here because we have all three pieces of this, right? We have an advantage, and you guys can help me discern the truth from the air in all three of those areas. So here is CIA, NSA, Amazon, and Admiral Rogers. Holy yes, it says. So this, I talked to you about this yesterday. So I'm not going to go over this, but it's a much more detailed review of what I've already told you, is that the CIA was giving access. They were contractors giving access illegally, and now they've hidden it all of all the NSA data. So all the NSA data that you have to have very strict rules, and it can be audited to who used it for what purposes. They replicated that data into CIA databases, into Amazon contractors hid it from everybody, and now it's trying to wash it all away to show who did all the unmasking, who had access to this NSA database, and Admiral Rogers was all over it. So Jeff Bezos, as well as his contractors, he's in bed with the deep state. That's why he's using his Washington Post to try to cover all this up. And he's as deep state as you can get. He's as cabal as you can get. So again, CIA, Amazon, Washington Post are like this. They're all cabal, criminals trying to first not have Trump get elected, then try to overthrow him afterwards. Right, so we talked about that yesterday in detail if you want to go back to it. Brazil's new pro-Trump foreign minister trashes climate change as Marxist ideology. Ha! Isn't that interesting? So again, this is worldwide. This is one of the most exciting days I've had in all my time doing this over a year with you guys, is really digging in and actually seeing now, and I guess over a year of me doing this research myself. I didn't start doing it with you guys until February, but in the last year of just me personally looking at all this, this is the first time I really realized this is gonna go global. And I thought it was gonna have to be. You've heard me pray a lot about heal this land, and so that we can go replicate it worldwide. I think it's going to happen simultaneously now. It's exciting for me to see Europe out there, and here's Brazil, other countries waking up. This Trump movement is a worldwide movement. It is not a movement. This Q movement is a worldwide movement, much bigger than I even thought. It just registered to me today. It's like, yes, ICE just tells New Jersey AG to shove it. You want to restrict cooperation? We'll just increase our immigration raids. So here's an article that talks about this, where it literally says that ICE just told New Jersey's AG to shove it. You want to restrict cooperation? We'll just increase our immigration raids. So it just shows that these sanctuary cities are they're not communicating with ICE. So ICE is just going to start doing their job in a more aggressive fashion without working with these sanctuary states or whatever they are. Burnt up cars in France still have their wheels, and the ones in California don't. So this guy says, I was watching on AON, AOAN, all the riots over there in France where the cars are burned up still have the wheels. All the cars in California from the forest fires, they don't have their wheels. So the whole thing about DEWs, direct energy weapons, is just really interesting when you see some of the burned cars, as well as the tree. Some trees is perfectly, while other ones are just fried, even though they're really close together. Bizarre stuff happened in California. December 5th, the New World Order dies with George H.W. Bush. And I think I was showing you the prophecy yesterday with Mark Taylor just saying just that. He predicted this a year and a half ago. I think it was a year and a half ago. May have been the January 2018 one, so it might have been 11 months ago. But it basically said the sign will be when the first of the living presidents dies, is that a new world order is going to die. So that's why it was George W. Bush. Made sense. Now, right, so let me get to the Bible study, which I think you guys are going to enjoy, and how it relates to today. The story of Esther and the end of it, and how it relates to today. That's the kind of the fun part of what I'm doing with these Bible studies. Again, taking what we're learning from the Bible and how do we apply it to what's going on in the real world and the prophecies we're looking at, as well as what's going on with Q. Right, so we'll apply all that here in the Bible study. But again, the preparation that I'm talking about for the fact that we are going to have probably riots, we might have martial law. Some of these CERN things they're doing, or what they're trying to do with the water supply, what they're trying to do with potentially the power grids. Just to be prepared is important. One of the most important things you can do is just make sure you have survival food, right? And so I know a lot of you have already done this, but this is such an incredible deal. I want to keep this going for a while. It's preparewithrick.com. All some other products coming out from this awesome company too. But this one's such a great deal. I want to make sure that everybody at least has 2 weeks, probably 4 weeks per person, of just survival food on hand. It's just basic preparedness. Anybody who's been in true emergencies, when you go to the store and it's everything's sold out. When there's a run on the store, you got to prepare before the emergency, right? And that's why this preparewithrick.com can help you make sure you have survival food. Again, this is a 2-week supply or a 4-week supply. So if you have 2 in the family, you probably want to get 2 of these to get 2 4-week supplies for yourself, right? If you have one person, then get either 2 of these, or if you only want 2 weeks supply and don't have the cash, you can just do this. But this is a great discount, all the way down to $75 for a full 2 weeks of food, 8 food varieties, up to 25-year shelf life. Again, this comes in a really nice 4-gallon tote storage. This one comes in a 10-gallon tote storage. And this one has more 15 food varieties as 4 weeks, and you get a whole $100 off this 4-week food supply. So just make sure, please, that you guys are preparing in all areas. That, I was talking about ammunition and gas in your car, etc., and have some survival food on hand. Right? Hey, if you want my show notes, it's going to be for the last show, part 1 and part 2. You need to come to blessedtoteach.com, blessedtoteach.com. And if you don't want to have to go here each time, you can bookmark that. It might be a lot easier if you just get it on my email list. And then you'll get a link to it exactly when I'm done with it. Like, I'm not going to be done with it tonight because it's way late. So I'll be doing these like over my lunch hour tomorrow or tomorrow night, right? But you'll know exactly when I'm done with the show notes. You'll get links directly to the show notes. You can also see me on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. And then also, if you I just want to show you these are pretty awesome, these show notes, because not only do you get a link to the shows, you also get a link to all the sponsors, as well as, like, here's the backup sites for QAnon, as well as all these articles and also the prophecies, right, that I'm giving. So if you want direct access to all that exactly when you know it and get a link to it, sign up for the email list, again, at blessedtoteach.com. Let's get into this into this Bible study. We've already gone through all of Esther, Ezra and Nehemiah, and now we're doing Esther. And the reason I started with these 3 books on the Bible studies is because it was all related to Trump. Number 45, President 45, because Isaiah 45, that's right, President 45 and Isaiah 45 are very similar, because Isaiah 45 talks about Cyrus, where God predicted hundreds of years beforehand that he was going to use them to free the Jews, basically, away from the Babylonians, at that point in time. It was Nebuchadnezzar, etc. So, Cyrus did that. I believe the Persian king, I believe he was. And it was crazy to see. So you got the Syrian and Babylonians, and then you had the Persians went and took over. And Cyrus, unlike the evil Nebuchadnezzar, who forced everybody to leave their city and took them into captivity, burnt everything, and then stole all the items out of the temple, then Cyrus let them go back to rebuild the temple, let them take all the material back into the temple, and it was rebuilt. Right, that was so we learned about that in the book of Ezra. And then you had Nehemiah going back and building the wall around Jerusalem. And then after that, you have the time of Esther. And it's the coolest story, the time of the Esther. So for those of you who missed the first 4 chapters, you have Queen Vashti decides not to come to a party after a 7-day deal, and she disobeys the king. You're just not supposed to do that, right? So she could have been killed. They didn't kill her, but he put her away. And the nobles all said, hey, why don't you get another wife? And so they went through a 3-year, 4-year process of the searching for the most beautiful maidens, and they all got the money and the food and perfumes and everything they wanted to prepare for their beauty to come before the king. And hundreds of these girls would come before the king. And they were all dressing up massively nice, right? And all kinds of jewelry and being extravagant. And and Esther comes in basically just herself, right? With just humble clothes. And she's a Jewish person. She was taken care of by this special person named Mordecai, right? And so what's cool about this is that Mordecai actually saved the life of the king, finding out people that were trying to kill him. So the king liked Mordecai, but the person that was a second in charge was a guy named why do I mess his name up? It's Haman, right? Haman. So Haman became the second most powerful person in charge. Thank you, Eric Thompson. Appreciate it. And so he became in charge, and he hated Mordecai because Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. So he was just a prideful person and wanted everybody to bow down to him. And he became the second most powerful behind King Xerxes, right? And so he decided, after he even got more powerful, that he wanted to not only kill Mordecai, but he wanted to kill all the Jewish people across the whole land. And they were pretty much the rulers of the whole world at that time. And so what he ended up doing was building a huge gallows to hang Mordecai, the Jewish person who was basically a relative of Esther. Now, they didn't know, the king didn't know, neither did Haman know that Mordecai was related to Esther, the queen, right? So Esther becomes this queen because the king falls in love with her just being a humble person. She becomes a queen. Nobody knows she's a Jewish person. And you've probably heard some of these famous lines here before, but but if you go to the king when you're not called, you basically get killed unless the king somehow forgives you and gives you his scepter. So she hadn't been seen for 30 days, and she decides to go to him because Mordecai's saying, this Haman just put out something. He tricked the king into putting a king's signet ring on to go kill all the Jews across the whole land. And of course, you see Mordecai goes to Esther, you got to go talk to the king, right? All our people are going to die. It's going to be like the Holocaust, right? And she finally gets enough muster, and she says, when all this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. So she was willing to go die for her people, right? It's a pretty cool story. And one of the coolest things, they had her fast and pray for her for 3 days before she did it. All right, so it's part of the community coming together and fasting and praying. And then we saw in 5 and 6 where Esther's request, she comes to him and basically says, please, I'm not going to tell you, but have Haman come to a mill. So Haman, who's about ready to say, I want to go hang Mordecai on this gallows at my house that I have prepared. Somebody, God, probably most likely, obviously, stirred up in people to actually bring some old copies of history to him, and he remembered Mordecai right before Haman did this had saved his life, and let him know about a coup attempt that was on him. And so he even though Haman was completely mad, he ended to end up basically, the king asked him, hey, I have something I'm going to honor, and Haman thinks it's going to be him. And he says, do all these great things, and the king says, go do that for Mordecai, his vital enemy. So the very enemy that he wanted to ask to be hung on his gallows, he had to go glorify and let him put robes on him and let him go around the city on a horse, honoring him, and it just pissed him off, and he was mad about that. And that was at chapter 6. And then as we go forward, he goes to the dinner with Esther, and Esther gives her a request and tells the king about the evil plan of Haman. So the king was angry. He came back. He saw Haman begging Esther to try to save his life, and the king thought he was molesting her. So God set all this up to basically take this prideful person that wanted to kill the Jews and turn the tables on him, where he ends up having to be killed on his own gallows, right? So that's where we end. Is where Haman got the robe and horse. Where he actually that's when he honored Mordecai, but then he was actually impaled himself on his own gallows that he made for the Jewish person he wanted to kill. So if you just see God's providence there, God's in control. He can control secular people. He can control, not only he communicate to his people, he can control hardened secular people's hearts. He can stir them to go look at laws like he did King Xerxes in this case. And he can do just amazing things, and he loves it when people fast and pray and ask for forgiveness of everything of our nation. So I paralleled that a lot last week to asking forgiveness of what this nation's done, and asking to heal this nation, right, regardless of what nation you live in, right, around the world. And so that was chapter 7. Ended up where then Harna, one of the eunuchs, attended the king and said, a pole reaching the height of 50 cubits stands in Haman's house, and had it set up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. The king said, impale him on it. So they impaled Haman on the pole and set up Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided. Okay, so now here we go to 8, 9, 10. I'm going to play this for you. And again, I do it at 1.5 speed. You can go back to your play speed. If you go your triple dots on your mobile phone and hit play speed, you can slow it down if you want. If you're listening to the recording. So let's go. I'm going to play this at 1.5 speed, all 3 of these chapters, and then we're going to review about how it applies to today, because it really does. It's pretty cool. Here we go.
Esther 8. That same day, King Xerxes gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came into the presence of the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had reclaimed from Haman, and presented it to Mordecai, and Esther appointed him over Haman's estate. Esther again pleaded with the king, falling at his feet and weeping. She begged him to put an end to the evil plan of Haman the Agagite, which he had devised against the Jews. Then the king extended the gold scepter to Esther, and she arose and stood before him. If it pleases the king, she said, and if he regards me with favor and thinks it the right thing to do, and if he is pleased with me, let an order be written overruling the dispatches that Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, devised and wrote to destroy the Jews in all the king's provinces. For how can I bear to see disaster fall on my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my family? King Xerxes replied to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, because Haman attacked the Jews, I have given his estate to Esther, and they have impaled him on the pole he set up. Now, write another decree in the king's name in behalf of the Jews as seems best to you, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For no document written in the king's name and sealed with his ring can be revoked. At once the royal secretaries were summoned. On the 23rd day of the 3rd month, the month of Sivan, they wrote out all Mordecai's orders to the Jews and to the satraps, governors, and nobles of the 127 provinces stretching from India to Kush. These orders were written in the script of each province and the language of each people, and also to the Jews in their own script and language. Mordecai wrote in the name of King Xerxes, sealed the dispatches with the king's signet ring, and sent them by mounted couriers who rode fast horses especially bred for the king. The king's edict granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and protect themselves, to destroy, kill, and annihilate the armed men of any nationality or province who might attack them and their women and children, and to plunder the property of their enemies. The day appointed for the Jews to do this in all the provinces of King Xerxes was the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality, so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers riding the royal horses went out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Susa. When Mordecai left the king's presence, he was wearing royal garments of blue and white, a large crown of gold, and a purple robe of fine linen, and the city of Susa held a joyous celebration. For the Jews, it was a time of happiness and joy, gladness and honor. In every province and in every city to which the edict of the king came, there was joy and gladness among the Jews, with feasting and celebrating, and many people of other nationalities became Jews because fear of the Jews had seized them. Esther 9. On the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, the edict commanded by the king was to be carried out. On this day, the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, but now the tables were turned, and the Jews got the upper hand over those who hated them. The Jews assembled in their cities, in all the provinces of King Xerxes, to attack those determined to destroy them. No one could stand against them, because the people of all the other nationalities were afraid of them. And all the nobles of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and the king's administrators helped the Jews, because fear of Mordecai had seized them. Mordecai was prominent in the palace. His reputation spread throughout the provinces, and he became more and more powerful. The Jews struck down all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying them, and they did what they pleased to those who hated them. In the citadel of Susa, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. They also killed Parshandatha, Dalphon, Aspatha, Paratha, Adalia, Aradatha, Parmashta, Arasai, Aradai, and Vizatha, the 10 sons of Haman, sons of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. But they did not lay their hands on the plunder. The number of those killed in the citadel of Susa was reported to the king that same day. The king said to Queen Esther, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman in the citadel of Susa. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? It will also be granted. If it pleases the king, Esther answered, give the Jews in Susa permission to carry out this day's edict tomorrow also, and let Haman's 10 sons be impaled on poles. So the king commanded that this be done. An edict was issued in Susa, and they impaled the 10 sons of Haman. The Jews in Susa came together on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and they put to death in Susa 300 men, but they did not lay their hands on the plunder. Meanwhile, the remainder of the Jews who were in the king's provinces also assembled to protect themselves and get relief from their enemies. They killed 75,000 of them, but did not lay their hands on the plunder. This happened on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. The Jews in Susa, however, had assembled on the 13th and 14th, and then on the 15th they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. That is why rural Jews, those living in villages, observe the 14th of the month of Adar as a day of joy and feasting, a day for giving presents to each other. Mordecai recorded these events, and he sent letters to all the Jews throughout the provinces of King Xerxes, near and far, to have them celebrate annually the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar as the time when the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month when their sorrow was turned into joy, and their mourning into a day of celebration. He wrote them to observe the days as days of feasting and joy, and giving presents of food to one another, and gifts to the poor. So the Jews agreed to continue the celebration they had begun, doing what Mordecai had written to them. For Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast the pur, that is the lot, for their ruin and destruction. But when the plot came to the king's attention, he issued written orders that the evil scheme Haman had devised against the Jews should come back onto his own head, and that he and his sons should be impaled on poles. Therefore these days were called Purim, from the word pur. Because of everything written in this letter, and because of what they had seen and what had happened to them, the Jews took it on themselves to establish the custom that they and their descendants, and all who joined them, should without fail observe these 2 days every year in the way prescribed and at the time appointed. These days should be remembered and observed in every generation, by every family, and in every province and in every city. And these days of Purim should never fail to be celebrated by the Jews, nor should the memory of these days die out among their descendants. So Queen Esther, daughter of Abihail, along with Mordecai the Jew, wrote with full authority to confirm this second letter concerning Purim. And Mordecai sent letters to all the Jews in the 127 provinces of Xerxes' kingdom, words of goodwill and assurance, to establish these days of Purim at their designated times, as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther had decreed for them, and as they had established for themselves and their descendants in regard to their times of fasting and lamentation. Esther's decree confirmed these regulations about Purim, and it was written down in the records.
This next chapter is real short.
Esther 10. King Xerxes imposed a tribute throughout the empire to its distant shores, and all his acts of power and might, together with a full account of the greatness of Mordecai, whom the king had promoted, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Media and Persia? Mordecai the Jew was second in rank to King Xerxes, preeminent among the Jews, and held in high esteem by his many fellow Jews, because he worked for the good of his people and spoke up for the welfare of all the Jews.
Wow. The reason I love this story is because I think it parallels where we are in today's history in many ways. In that you have God's chosen people, the Israelis here, being about to be just wiped off the planet, and I think it was similar to the 16-year plan to destroy America. And if you really look at, I parallel a lot of what this story talks about with with Haman's hatred of Mordecai, as the media and the cabal's hatred of Trump, this Trump derangement syndrome. So this guy, he was the second most powerful person in the world, and he just hated Mordecai because he wouldn't bow down to him. And that's what's happening. You have Trump is not going to bow down to the deep state, to the criminals. And they hate that. And that's why they have the Trump derangement syndrome, right? So that's why I kind of look at this like, wow. And I see God's hand. You just see it here in this story where his hand was on Mordecai. And he ended up taking a humble man in a secular world and exalting him, right? And they actually protected his people that were about ready to be destroyed. And we as Christians and we as patriots were about ready to be destroyed by Hillary Clinton and the culmination of the 16-year plan in this last 8 years. And I think it was really going to happen. We were literally saved on the November 8th of 2016. And that was a huge miracle that the remnant were praying for, and we the people stood up to make happen. So let's look at this. Let's look at chapter 8, where it says, the same day King Xerxes gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman. So here is Haman wanting to kill. He didn't know Esther, the queen, was Jewish, but she was wanting to kill all her people. And she's wanting to kill Mordecai, right? And the very fact that he became so prideful and so angry that he made mistakes, big mistakes, right? He's talking to people he shouldn't have talked to. He was way too aggressive with trying to destroy everybody. And when it was found out, what happened? He ended up getting hung on his own gallows. And who got the estate? His very enemies got the estate. So you have all these evil Rothschilds who own all the banking system, and all these evil people in Hollywood that own all of Hollywood, and these massively wealthy people like George Soros and all the cabal that he works with, and they all have all this money, and all that money is going to go to we the people. It's going to eliminate the debt of the United States, I believe. And so here you have Esther, again, pleaded with the king, falling at his feet and weeping. She begged him to put an end to the evil plan of Haman the Agagite, which he had devised against the Jews. So even though Haman's dead, there's still a huge problem, because he tricked the king at putting his signet ring on this plan for everybody to go kill the Jews. And that since it was from the king, they were thinking, well, the king wants me to do this. So the people that were neutral were going to go on the side of the enemies of the Jews, right? And maybe even part of the king's army might have even been an assistance to the termination of the Jews, similar to what happened in the Holocaust. That's the dire need here. So even though Haman is dead, the fact is that people's sin carry on after them. That's why we want to try to get a relationship with the Lord and clean up our lives and just live for him, so our sin doesn't carry on to our kids, doesn't carry on to our friends and neighbors and our loved ones. So the sin of Haman was still there, was still going to result in the destruction of the Jews, right? So even if we go eliminate, now I'm telling you today, if we go let's just say we even put in Gitmo Obama and Hillary and everybody else, we still have a big problem in the United States. Just like they had a big problem here back in these days across the whole known world at that time. The Jews were still going to die. We still have a dying country in many ways. We still have the disease of socialism, the disease of progressivism. We still have professors over academia completely brainwashing our kids into non-godly type thinking, into non-capitalist type thinking. They're raising non-patriots right out of our system. We got Hollywood giving us cancerous movies, and everything has to do with gay people, and everything has to do with political correctness versus truth. I hope Amanda Grace, what she was prophesying, is going to come true, where all these Christian movies are going to come up and people are going to flock to the theaters. It's going to be an amazing time to see. But right now, this is where they were. They were still in trouble. So they need to do something. And when the king's laws are, you can't. Back then, you couldn't change it. So they had to do something different. And what's amazing here is King Xerxes replied to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, because Haman attacked the Jews. I have given his estate to Esther and have impaled him on the pole he set up, which is so cool. Now write another decree in the king's name in behalf of the Jews, as it seems best to you. He gave the power to Mordecai and Esther, and seal it with the king's signet ring. So he says, you write it and I'll sign it, basically. I'll give it the signet ring. For no document written in the king's name and sealed with his ring can be revoked. He gave them absolute power. Is that not cool to see that? So the secular, I think as we start cleaning up this mess and people start seeing, the king's eyes were opened. Just like the D class is going to open the eyes of the American people. The king's eyes were open when he realized that Haman was actually trying to kill all the Jews. So when they see, when the D class comes out and everybody starts seeing the evil of all these people, then it's going to turn right on them. It's going to turn right on them, right? And then we're going to be empowered. And I believe this government's going to start wanting more patriots and more Christians to come in to help this government, to help in all parts of Hollywood, and to come in and clean up Silicon Valley and clean up all these different areas, academia, the family, all levels of government. We're going to need people in all those different areas. And Mordecai wrote in the name of King Xerxes, sealed the dispatches with the king's signet ring, and sent them mounted couriers and rode off the horses especially bred for a king. So a new law, basically. So we're going to get new laws that are actually righteous laws. We're going to be overturning things like Roe versus Wade. So as we get the power back, as people's eyes are open with the D-class, just like the king's eyes. He let them go do what was right. And we're going to be able to do with his country as we the people what we should be doing and what God wants to be done. It's going to be such an exciting time. The king's edict granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and protect themselves, to destroy and kill and annihilate the armed men of any nationality or province who might attack them and their women or children, and to plunder the property of the enemies. It happened to be the same day they were plotting to go kill all the Jews. They gave them the ability to basically to fight back, to defend themselves, and probably be aggressive against the ones that were eventually going to kill them. It was just on that one day, though. So they had to make that a very, very strategic day, right? In that, in every province, and I'm basically on 8:17 now. In every province, in every city to which the edict of the king came, there was joy and gladness among the Jews, with feasting and celebrating, and many people and other nationalities became Jews because of fear of the Jews had seized them. So look what the Lord did. He had the fear of the Jews come into these other people, and they go, oh my goodness, the Lord is with him, the king's with them. I need to become a Jew. So what do you think is going to happen when all these great things start happening, these new laws start getting in place, and the power comes to all these Christian and patriots? People are going to want to become a patriot. People are going to want to become a Christian. They're going to be attracted. They're going to have a fear of the Lord, and they're going to have a fear of us because they know that we're going to start controlling the culture again, and they're going to join us. They're going to give their life to Christ, hopefully. And that is going to be an awesome time. I really believe it's going to happen here. Here we are on Esther 9:2 says, the Jews assembled in their cities and all the province of King Xerxes to attack those determined to destroy them. And so now I'm not talking about physical attacks, but I'm talking about we need to do this from a perspective of spiritual warfare, as far as voting, being active, taking back this country, taking back your country. No one could stand against them because the people of all the other nationalities were afraid of them, and all the nobles of the provinces, the stirrups and the governors and the king administrations helped the Jews. So now we have just the opposite of what Haman planned. All that evil was turned to do good, so that they could go protect themselves. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. All these evil plans they had to destroy us, and all the cures and everything that they're using only on themselves is now going to be turned on for good. All these new inventions like direct energy weapons will be used for good, not destruction. All these different type of inventions and pharmaceutical type things, maybe healing for cancer, healing for diabetes, healing for all these things, it looks like are going to be coming open. And here they were able to basically defend themselves and actually kill off the people that were going to eventually destroy them. And it was a great time of celebration. And in the end, the Mordecai the Jew became second ranked to King Xerxes. This is Esther 10:3. He was prominent among the Jews, and he held in high esteem in many fellow Jews because he worked for the good of the people and spoke up for the welfare of all the Jews. And this is where I think God's going to do with us. For those of you in the army of God that come in and help take back this country, take back your country, and actually heal this land, and we take back the culture, that God's going to actually bless us. And it may not just be financially or with esteem, but it's basically we're gonna be able to have the abundant life that he promises in the Bible. What an exciting time we live in to see God. Just like he was silent for 400 years before Christ came, and the last revival we've had in the United States has been many years. I believe a revival's coming to this nation. So the same type of hand he had on this circumstance back in Esther's time, where he was with Esther and Mordecai and used those two people to save his people. I believe he's going to be using Trump for just a time as this, many of the white hats for just a time as this in the current day to save his people. It's going to be such an exciting time to actually walk with the Lord through this. Be thankful that you're alive at a time like this, to be able to see the world turn away from unrighteousness toward righteousness. I think it's going to be like no other time in history as far as in our lifetime. So it's going to be such an exciting time. I look so forward to being with you guys on this walk. Let's pray. Holy Father, I just could go on for a couple more hours. This is such an exciting time. Thank you for your Word of God and your chapters, Esther 8 through 10, and just the whole book of Esther, and even also Nehemiah and Ezra, and so on, how you use Cyrus, a secular king, to do amazing things for your people, to be able to rebuild the temple, rebuild the wall, and eventually save your people from their enemies. In a secular world. Here we are in a secular world in the United States, Lord, and I just know you have such huge plans for us. We see your hand healing this nation. We see you confusing the enemy. We see the enemy just being completely delusional and being so angry with Trump they can't even do things right. And the enemy that's been hidden, this Illuminati, this cabal, these bloodlines that have just been hidden for so many years, are coming out in the open and showing themselves as they fight. Lord, thank you for exposing all this evil. We just pray that you'll continue to heal this land and the lands of many other nations. Lord, we pray for all those people in Germany. We pray for all those people in Belgium and in France and Germany and Belgium. What other areas where there's all across Europe? We just pray for Europe, Lord, that you move on the hearts of we the people. And Lord, you will stymie the plans of the EU, stymie the plans of the New World Order and the cabal. And Lord, you would not only expose all the evil that we're seeing here in the United States, it'll be in the Vatican, it'll be everywhere. Everywhere there's evil, Lord, eliminate it. Uproot the unrighteousness. And allow us to walk with you in this journey to be put righteousness back in our countries. We thank you, Lord, to being alive in a time such as this. Say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, guys, thank you for taking the time again. I know this was, 45 minutes plus an hour and 15, so we're 2 hours into this with the two parts. But there's so much material I couldn't stand not going over it all. So we got an extra bonus hour for Sunday. It looks like we got Jukebox Joni and Meech and Daniel Thompson and K-Star, another phase. Beach Girl, Colleen Johnson, Cat Barf, Dream With Me, Bunny, Lou Zepra, thank you Lou, and Dream With Me, and another phase for being moderators, appreciate it. And Kristen, we got Mega Man, Alan, Paula, Daniel, Houdini, France, Sean, George, K-Star, really appreciate all you guys. Amen, thank you, God bless, Rick says, a lot of amens, I love it. Thank you for time, Rick, thank you, Houdini, appreciate that. Thanks, Robert, the Asylum Theorist. We are still there. It says, let's join Rick's WhatsApp. Blessed to teach. How do people join? Yeah, so if you want to be on my WhatsApp, I'm going to try to keep it down to around 50 people. So I'm probably going to open it up to all people that are on Patreon. So go to patreon.com/blessed. There's a link down below. There, you can do it for $1 a month, right? So to just get you on there. I was going to, I'm adding right now everybody that's $10 and over a month. But if you're just on Patreon for even $1 a month, come in there and and those of you who want will be on my WhatsApp chat group. It'll be starting here. I started sending people, you'll need to download the WhatsApp, get on Patreon and download the WhatsApp. And then I'll work with you to get your phone number so that, and my phone number linked into the WhatsApp. And then we can all chat together as a group of around 40, 50 people eventually. I'll probably start out with 15 or 20 as this goes. We'll see how many people want to do it. Some people don't like group chats because you might get quite a few chats during the day, right? But it's kind of fun because we're going to be keeping each other updated on events and just asking questions, etc. It'll help me be a little more prepared. That right now I have to work my butt off with zero time on this during the week, obviously, and then I usually take from 7 to 9 or so, about 2 hours to prepare for this, and I do the show for an hour, and then it takes me about an hour and a half to get everything done. So I'm not sure how much I'll be able to sustain this, especially that's why you're not going to see me if I have a big project due, etc., and have to work at nights. I'm not going to be able to do that in my consulting job. But I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. Obviously, the more Patreon I get, the more I could potentially think about doing this with a bigger percentage of my time. Right now, I'm having to spend 50 plus hours a week on my job. So squeezing this in and that is pretty much all I do. I had to cut out everything else in my life, right? I used to watch football. I used to watch a lot of movies. Those are completely cut out now. I figure it's kind of like I'm in a war now, a very important time. So anyway, that's how you would get on the WhatsApp group, is just go to patreon.com/blessed. You can see the link down below. Would love you guys that would like to join me in that. It would be a lot of fun. Thank you, Patricia. I do appreciate it. Love you, brothers and sisters. And I love how you guys have a community here. And since it's been well over 2 hours, I am going to wrap it up here, guys. God bless you. This is Blessed to Teach, talking about 2-part series here, about 2 hours of the worldwide storm. We just had 13 drops. We had 2 things coming from Serial Brain 2, and just tons of news, and plus the Bible study. So that's why we took some extra time today on this Sunday. Hope you guys have a great week next week. Again, we talked about the worldwide storm in Germany, France, Belgium, all over Europe, and really went over the awesome chapters. We wrapped up Esther, the book of Esther, which was all about Mordecai and Esther and how God was just touching them at that point in time. And I think it's real similar to what God is doing now to the country of the United States and various European countries, etc., as we go worldwide with this movement. The storm is here. God bless you guys. This is Blessed to Teach. It's Rick, your host. Talk to you next time.